Again, Dr. Simon Nderitu, Reverend Dr. Simon Nderitu, is a PhD candidate right now at the Kabarak University, and his interest is in action research, and he's also done, you'll correct me there, Dr. Ri, anything that I get wrong. You are at Oral Roberts University.
Roberts University, US.
In Oklahoma. You'll tell us more about that. And you also have studies in evangelical seminary. You have studies in education, planning, and administration from Catholic University. And you've also done geography, economics, and religious studies. This is the best man to talk about multidisciplinarity because he has walked the talk. And you're an ordained clergy, a pastor, founder of Jesus People Gospel Ministries and Jepegomi Academy at Kawa Sukari. This is a platform for sharing the word of God and community outreach. You're a married father of 3, a grandpa, and lovely to host you today and listen to you. Karibu sana. You'll just be telling me to move the screen when you're ready, but over to you now.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and being ready to listen to my presentation. The topic is, what is the role of multidisciplinary research as an approach to holistic problem solving in the 21st century. Next, please. I have divided my presentation into 3 sections at least: operational definition of terms and concepts in order to be able to address this question. And the English prefix, as we see there, English prefix morality is from Latin maratus, meaning something, that something consists of many things of a particular kind. And multidisciplinary research refers to the non-cooperative research activity consisting of many disciplines or areas of study, meaning that each researcher carries out the study in the same problem area independently to avoid inter-researcher bias. This definition comes from HarperCollins Publishers Limited, 2020. The action team therefore applies each data set as considered separate, as considered relevant to the specific problem area. The emphasis is on correction of separate data sets from discipline experts or by discipline experts as a correction code with which the action team in a kind of an institution or a community, the team that works on the data, once the researchers who are the multidisciplinary team have already given their results. The main strength of this multidisciplinary approach is that the high validity of results to provide the potential for better product by action group in figure 1. Please take me to figure 1, please, down there. Figure 1 is a diagram down with the figure 1. It will help.
Where?
There is a slide number 9. Slide number 9, please, for my presenters. I
This
don't
one?
know how. Yes. Yes. So as you see in that figure, it's a problem structure in a holistic system or a community with operational researchers. And those operational researchers from now on will be abbreviated as OR, according to Vido, 2006. But this action plan there towards the end, we have operational researchers who are more or less supporting the problem solving, say in a community development project where they have found that the money is there, the problem is there, and they don't know how to handle this problem. And we have a work group, we have decision makers in that community, stakeholders are the community members, we have technical experts to help us, like I'm struggling here with the presentation issues. And they are all together. And we have researchers with their approaches, methods, and tools. That is figure 1. I will refer to it later on. And the whole, the line right from work group right across to action plan. Around the action plan, that's where we have the action group. Thank you. Back to the slide next from top.
Okay. We were here,
main
right?
strength, second from top. Yes, main strength, I have already mentioned, okay. Main weakness, please raise it up a little bit for presenter C. Okay. Yeah, that the main weakness of this multidisciplinary approach is independent external consultants who are usually, actually those kind of experts are usually very expensive to hire as researchers, and that can be an economic challenge, not necessarily a research challenge, but eventually it can either facilitate or hinder the implementation of the project plans. Okay, thank you. Next. Slide 3. Multidisciplinary research is different from interdisciplinary research. I would like to clarify a little bit there. Again, citing the English prefix inter from Latin inter, there's no change. It was taken as this, means between or among, meaning that it's connecting two or more places, things, or a group of people, according again to the same source, Harper & Collins Publishers Limited 2020. The emphasis here in interdisciplinary research is that the teams at the action group is with the team and action group is to integrate the findings to get a cooperative code. The main strength is that in competitive systems, like our private universities or private business units in this country of Kenya or elsewhere, is that the competitive systems can freely produce customized quality products through the use of innovation and creativity assets as human resource they have within the institution for the purpose of producing a unique product which gives them a niche in the competitive market. The main weakness is that it has weak validity of results because they usually compromise sometimes before research activity takes place, because the institution may give instructions to the team of researchers who are actually in the interdisciplinary team, and they are given exactly where the institution decides them to go. Or sometimes because of having a porous window among the researchers, they are likely to also create inter-researcher bias just within themselves as colleagues. Unlike the case of multidisciplinary research, where independent researchers do their thing on the same problem area, using the same participants at different times, and submit results to the action group, which then means that the action group should also be having multidisciplinary informed experts in order to interpret the findings and put them into action. But I also mentioned that the main weakness is that weak validity results usually compromise and so on and so forth. Monopolistic markets can exploit the consumers by selling poor quality product at high prices, as we are also finding sometimes in our country. Slide 4, please. The other concept that is important to us is to understand and to be able to distinguish multidisciplinary from other related and usually confused is transdisciplinary research. The Latin trans means on the side, yes, on the side of, or to, it is used to indicate that someone or something moves from one group, thing, state, or place to another. Again, the same publisher, 2020, Harvard Collins. And the inputs from the external source are brought into research system, such as collaborating source of research funds for researchers on poverty alleviation strategies in a specific community. The main strength is that the research-informed community development projects are not usually affordable by the poor communities or private local researchers, meaning that all other factors considered constant, that is ceteris paribus, government or private funding, makes such projects viable. The main weakness is that whether public or private, donor fund is usually biased towards what the interested parties who are funding want to promote. At times, that again has not helped the community to have their real and holistic needs met. Thank you. Next.
Just one question, Simon, Dr. Terry, as we are going on, just to have a distinction.
Yes.
So multidisciplinary is a group of people of different disciplines working on one research area. Correct me if I'm wrong.
But doing it independently.
They are doing it independently.
Yes.
And then interdisciplinary is a group of people who
may be in the same community area, community or university institution, but they can exchange their views, although they are in different disciplines.
Okay.
And therefore, when they are doing it as a team to promote their community or their institution, like USIU. And therefore, there's possibility of inter-researcher bias.
Okay.
Among them.
Okay.
And whether positive or negative, that interferes with the validity of the findings and objectivity may be compromised. However, it has its own strength. Then, any other question, please? The third one?
Yes, we are now at systems.
Okay. Yes. Yes, I first found it necessary to define a system which refers to the entire physical, mechanical, the metaphysical units, moral, immoral, or amoral, political, economic, or organic, or inorganic, among others. But whatever it is, then is geared towards solving problems which involve participation of units. So those units could be the team of researchers. Those units could be the community that is providing the donor groups. So here the understanding is that is a system as such, and is part and parcel of the research process. And then another definition that I found necessary here to provide is the machine age thinking. And as I checked on this area in trying to find out the history of the historical development of multidisciplinary research as an approach to holistic problem solving, I found that during the Second World War, problem solving approach using machines in England and the USA, in which operational researchers focused on invention of machines for industrialization, according to Vido, 2006, called for these researchers who are actually called these researchers had operational researchers, or are there as operational researchers, and meaning that they neglected the social science research as a foundational software in heuristic development of the human beings as well as the machines. At that point, therefore, I would like to bring what I found out that as I thought more in this area preparing to do this presentation, is that holistic approach is relative, because like at this point, is actually about the researchers being on the machine age thinking, as well as the next one, which we are going to call system age thinking in the next slide. In the next slide, please. Between the 60s and the 70s, riots by workers in industrialized countries raised research concerns of the nature of human being as a decision maker in organizations. So social science researchers then emerged specifically to study who the human being was. In other words, those ontological aspects, and ontology is a branch in metaphysics, or the study of the total reality, both the visible and invisible, dealing with the nature of the being. So metaphysics itself is larger than ontology, which is basically the study of the nature of reality in totality, both visible and invisible reality, that which we can access and that which we cannot. But going back there is that the social science, then to which I belong, to which most of my listeners this morning also belong, is that the social scientists in operational, among operational researchers, because they needed to solve the problem of riots in the field, and that the producers would continue with their industries and their business would continue, then called for a quick working so that they can really solve the problem. And that was the birth of the operational social scientists as researchers, and which were then called practical because actually they were more practical than just what the emphasis by producers was before. Again, is by video 2006. I'd like to introduce then at this point another concept, a terminology that is important for us, and that is holistic problem, and say that it exists within a defined unit of analysis. For example, as a Christian researcher, and I am one of them, and a social scientist, my research approach begins with the ontology, who the human being is, about his relationship or her relationship with the divine or God, and that the truth may not just be relative, but the truth is either or, and that is binary. So I would be thinking about a method of analysis called logistic regression in chapter 3. And I would be more concerned about the relationships between the human being that I'm studying. If I'm studying an individual, it's a community, then it would be intrapersonal because of how they are relating within themselves. And then a divine thou relationship, how they are relating with their God. And then relationships with each other, the interpersonal, and the relationships also with the non-human material world or immaterial world, which I would like to call substantive aspect of relationship. So to be looking at the multidimensional aspects of dynamics of relationship that this particular being, and that being is what metaphysics defines as anything that exists is called a being, according to this study area called philosophy. Like I mentioned, I am already a multidisciplinary in a number of fields, like 4 or 5. So feel free to ask questions when the time for question is due. Why multidisciplinary research? And here I want now to shed more light on the roles, which is within the topic, the role of multidisciplinary research as an approach towards holistic problem solving. So we shift, and in the process, then I'm also answering the question about the roles. Multidisciplinary research has an advantage of enhancing the vision of team members on their own discipline. Like when I'm interacting with psychologists, and I have done forming areas in psychology in my master's of divinity, and then I had done some little psychology of child development and psychology of teaching and learning in the University of Nairobi in my BA some years back. Still, I would need to be helped by some who are more experienced in this area, and therefore broaden my vision as we do multidisciplinary research as a team. So there is the second benefit, and which also spells out the role, is the synergy benefits. Each researcher in the multidisciplinary teams, here abbreviated from now on as MDTS, gains insights in other fields of study as well. 1 and 2 are related, but not the same. Number 3, which is again a role as well as an advantage, is it encourages the academic interdependence, which is closer to the real world. All researchers should seek to introduce constructive change through application of our finding as researchers. For until we are able to do that and solve our problems in a more holistic approach, then our communities or our other aspects of life which require this kind of approach still remain unattended. And the problem remains right there, staring at us, sometimes even screaming at us. Number 4, multidisciplinary research produces a holistic product in any industrial enterprise as a midwife to combine innovations and the creativity of team of researchers. So next, please. Yes, in university, that is number 5, in university industry linkages, which is a practice taking place in some of our local universities, whereby projects are actually jointly funded either by the university or by the industry in related areas, and the multidisciplinary research activities between schools in that particular institution. For example, social sciences pick up with the School of Education and pick up with the School of Engineering and so on and so forth. And then and in collaboration with the manufacturers at the funding or levels of resource to manufacture the new products to promote local private groups or the net national product, NNP, or international growth. So whatever is to be promoted then, or whoever, then this has been called collaboration or multidisciplinary collaboration research, but it is not really supposed to be that way because I already defined multidisciplinary research. So this should be called something else, just collaboration research, and that would be good enough. 6, assuming existence of vision and goodwill to create employment opportunities, for example, by government leaders or just by people in the local community, locally or internationally, as a problem-solving initiative, multidisciplinary researchers become operational researchers, as the figure indicated a little bit earlier, video 2006. Therefore, the point here at this juncture is that we as researchers should be working towards expanding the horizon of our teams at the theoretical level in our universities for the purposes of graduation, and working towards university industry linkages, or where that industry could be even community development projects as well, or the products industry, where the pure and applied sciences would be more relevant to work with us also. So we need that synergy and that cross-pollination in academics so that the theory and the practice, we get membership from all these teams. I would even propose that some members who can be trained to also be part of these teams could be from industry, others from the university, and then within the university, social sciences, as well as pure and applied sciences, mathematics, and so on and so forth, so that we have quite a well-balanced and holistic team in order to meet the human needs, which are also quite complex, where the problem area is being addressed. Thank you. Next. Next, please. And here comes our diagram borrowed from, this is problem structure. Please take it up. We have not come to that one, please. The diagram is problem structure in a holistic system.
I go down.
You go up. No, go up. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. As I looked at this area a little bit more and interacting with other researchers as I prepared this presentation, I found this one again from Fido. We had really, this researcher had really worked on this area, unlike many others who are not providing something substantial to really add new knowledge to us or help us significantly. So it's not really oversighted, is that is my best that I could access in this particular area. So video 2006 then has indicated what you see there, problem structure as a way of what we call today conceptual framework. And it's conceptualized as decision makers and then interacting with the work group as a task force. For example, university management, getting a task force in USIU or the University of Nairobi or any other university around the world. And then we have identified the problem. We have the stakeholders interacting with the same work group or task force as called in some of the institutions. And then they all join efforts with the team of researchers who are the multidisciplinary operational researchers. And so we should add S there, but I could not edit that. It just refused to be edited, which is good. Then we're working with the technical experts, the expertise. So we have the IT people, we have other technical people, like I was assisted this morning to project this thing for some of the deficiencies which I have in that area. As I had mentioned before, it has to do with the methodological approaches, the research methods, the tools to use. Are we going to use focus group? Are you going to use a combination of a number of tools for the purpose of making it more reliable and increasing validity, and so on and so forth? So tools here may refer to research instruments, may refer to quite a number of other that you may need to use. Next, please. Next slide. Thank you. This is now coming more closer home to us towards a holistic methodology. And I had mentioned before that, yes, we have operational researchers. At this moment now, we are on the third stage of coming up with a category of researchers that will be relevant to the 21st century. And that is the analytical synthetic researcher or team of researchers. And this is an adapted diagram. Is actually generated by the presenter who is presenting, because the one that was there was so complex and it could not actually be relevant to our presentation. But I selected figure 2 as tactiven of systemic thinking. I had mentioned systemic thinking as systemic edge thinking, as was called a little bit earlier. And earlier on, there was machine thinking. And now we are on combining two research methods so that a more holistic research methodology, analytical, will actually touch on the right side of the diagram. Let me take left side of the diagram. Then we will put there analytical, and on the right side of the diagram, you will put synthetic. And the same team of researchers will be working on both sides. Right at the top, coming down on the left side of the diagram, and that is in my notes, which I can supply a little bit later after this presentation, is that number one, you'd have to use analytical approach which is more of what we are emphasizing now. Take a unit and then divide it into parts and analyze its parts. Then analyze what each part then does, and do all the rigor we can do on that, the research rigor, and then present it as a part of the whole where we started, and see how they are interconnected. But on the right side of the diagram, systemic thinking would begin from bottom instead of beginning from the top. The systemic thinking with the same team of researchers combining the two approaches in the same person, the same researchers, then would work on this unit as already understood from the analytical side, and see how it relates to its function in the community, if you are doing community development, or in a production process in industry. How does the steering wheel, for example, relate with the wheels themselves? And how does it relate with the engine and the fuel? I'm taking the example of a vehicle. And then move on and be able to, instead of integrating, do the assembly. And they say that what Aristotle said, that the sum of the parts is never equal to the whole. Then what's here to explain as one of the maxims that we might adopt as a holistic research methodology at this point of my presentation. So Aristotle was a philosopher. That's a different discipline, and I have a bit of that. So you can ask questions later on, or more explanation on the same. But as what some people have also said, that there was a research done in Canada with the horses. One of them would pull 35 horsepower, those days of horsepower, worth of road, and the other one would pull 40. Mathematically, it would add up to 75 workload when they are joined together, maybe with a yoke or on a wagon. But when they tied them together, the user of the beasts of burden or transport system, the two horses, added a little bit more weight, and they found that the user was able to go up to nearly 85 horsepower. And so that is statement of Aristotle from the philosophical side, and that's why interdisciplinary researchers from different disciplines are important, is that the user of the burdens was probably not even a scientist, was basically a practitioner in the field, and that problem was therefore solved, whether by default or by intention. Definitely, there are just things that are there which have been happening in the interdisciplinary area. That was actually the part of what we use today as synergy. So some researchers need to pick up such things that are discovered at random by people who don't know what is going on, so that we can do multidisciplinary studies and make decisions in the marketplace for better product using informed or from an informed perspective. The last one, please. I pick up my own research, which is and close with this one, unless I am asked to expand a little bit. This is a paper about to be published, and I did studies on the relationship between the way the Akurino believers in Nairobi County interpret their theology in order to inform how they apply that theology in the marketplace. And they picked them 3 variables, but here I'm only mentioning one. And this paper is picked from that huge study. And coming down to close to what the diagram is indicating there, or the table, is that one chi-squared test for independence was then performed to find out the strength of faith or belief in God as the source of truth, and that comes in the area of epistemology, how we know what we know and where we get it from and why. Since these are believers, then all these questions are answered. And so according to believers, then believe strongly that on this particular item, that reading the Bible was the most reliable way of knowing God. You see, we have theistic and theistic worldviews. And you can see the items there, the independent variable, and obviously the P greater than C, or rather the P values here, greater than critical value, 0.05, and the first and second said that I read the Bible as God's most reliable means of knowing who he is. The dependent variable was the dreams, the visions, and the prophecy as an area of emphasis among the Aquilino believers. And using this illustration, you can see that I combined my knowledge of philosophy and my knowledge of divinity studies, and also being an insider as a Christian researcher. I also combined a number of other areas like my MD planning and administration, because there are also variables in education in Nairobi County to find out the gender differences and how that played out. And we use the same kind, but a different one. How that then enhanced or hindered their ability to interpret the scriptures because of the level of education. And how did that vary by gender? Some of that is in the paper. But I also used part of the economics I did, and part of the commerce I adapted after teaching economics in Form 5 and 6 some years ago, after University of Nairobi, to also now put some of that knowledge there, the single same person who is presenting, and asking myself, innovations in the Aquilino community, does this study indicate that they have been actually on innovations which can be called now from a religious perspective, and that we cannot separate them from being people who are eating, who are going to school, and who are using other disciplines in their lifestyle because they are a whole unit. If you take an individual, a believer as a unit or a system, then you put all of them as a community. There are a lot of innovations that are there in their dressing, their singing to actually express their truth, and their lifestyle in general. So the one I captured here was for the purpose of indicating that, whereas a psychologist may not actually approach using this method, or somebody else in another field may not use this same method, it means that if they use a different methodology, although they are still on holistic approach, because of who they are, and that is ontology. Myself, I'm a believer in Christ as Lord and Savior. Then they would not probably come up with statistically significant results in one and the two. And the third one, I know God through the verses, God gave first Aquilino prophets, they disagreed with that. The paper has more to say about this. So I combined that, the two sets of variables, and then added an additional component because of my exposure, some little exposure on the interdisciplinary studies, which I have passed through. And I really want to take that with humility and with the precision that my team members and the listeners have been with me and patient with me. And I would like to meet some of them, and we do some of these things together as a multidisciplinary team of researchers, so that they can also synergize me with what they have. Thank you very much. I'd like to pause it at that for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. for that very rich and insightful presentation, and really taking us through what it means to have a multidisciplinary lens, and also putting together a team that allows us to look at a problem at different angles And I also like the area where you talked about the industry link. You know, hardly sometimes do we do research, considering even people who will use the research, who will utilize these findings, and inviting them on the table to conceptualize with us, to find with us. I think it's really powerful, and also showing us how in your own research with the Wakorino, you've been able to embed those different lenses of disciplines based on even your own background. And I like how you situate yourself in the research. You know, you keep saying your positionality as a Christian believer, as a social scientist, all these lenses are also influencing how you're defining a problem, how you're looking at it. So that is really rich from a scholarly perspective. I invite our participants. Please, do you have any questions? Have you attempted a multidisciplinary approach to research? Is it something you're looking into, even for your own paper, even for your own research? You can unmute. You can unmute. You can just say your own experience or what Dr. has talked about. Have you been also in a multidisciplinary team? How did that play out for you? Because also my own experience, sometimes discipline have tended to be hierarchy over others. So even when you're in this team, sometimes you have to navigate your own, you have to negotiate for a particular perspective to be considered. Because sometimes you have very strong quantitative positivist ideas of research. And sometimes when you take your qualitative lens, you can be told that's not very serious. So also multidisciplinarity, there has been a lot of power in terms of hierarchy and disciplines, and it's also constant negotiation and inviting people to look at things in a different way. So any question, any reflection, anything that you could use for your own research is welcome. Wanjiro, do you do multidisciplinary research?
Thank you so much, Aurelia. Thank you, Rev, Doctor. I don't know which one to use, but I can use both. Thank you for this very insightful presentation. I'm just now reflecting on the kind of research that I've been doing, and I like the point that you've made, Aurelia, on the differences in power, the asymmetries really in power when you in that research landscape, when you look at the different disciplines. For instance, if you're engaging with STEM, and then our social sciences people, you know, there's usually some bit of tension and some contestations, but yes, something that we continuously have to navigate. I have, from my academic background, I have not engaged in multidisciplinary research, but just right now, after finishing the PhD, that's when I've started to work with scholars from other disciplines, people in memory studies. I am a research fellow in an institute that largely focuses on peace and security. And for me, because I'm coming from a project management background, now bringing the aspects of sustainability, of governance into the research that we've been doing. So I'm pretty new in this. It's interesting, the challenges, you know, again, when you have all these people, there's also challenges in terms of coordination. How do we coordinate some of this groups of people that are coming into this research? How do we harmonize? And especially when you come to the production of outputs, how again do we reflect all these perspectives and how do they fit in? For instance, if you're publishing maybe under one organization. So we have people from different disciplines, and we are publishing with this one organization that is focused on a particular discipline. So we are negotiating that, but it's interesting. I'm now just getting into multidisciplinary. And thank you, Doc, also for making the distinctions between trans and inter and multi. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Wanjiro. Anyone else with a reflection? We just have 2 minutes because we are a bit over time, then we can close. Anyone with a reflection on multidisciplinary? And I like the point you made, Daktari, that problems are complex. Problems are not just one discipline issue. You know, even the problem we are having, one of the issues we are facing in Kenya is schools that are banning. Allegedly, students are banning schools, and not the whole school, but parts of the school. And I think that's an opportunity for a multidisciplinary lens to really understand the complex problem. Some may say it's only a psychological problem, it's a discipline problem, but I think those are the type of complex problems that when we invite more people in the space, will allow us to dissect it better and to really go deep and find what could be the root cause. So if there is no other reflection, Dr. over to you for your closing remark, 1 minute, and then we call it a nice Saturday.
Again, thank you all for listening to my presentation here. Basically, I am not really a guru in this yet. Like Madam Wanjiro Gishovi has mentioned, she's just about to get into it, and you find how complex it is. In my little exposure that I have in this country, is that there is already a dichotomy between what the universities are doing and producing, actually practically in many fields, and what is required in the marketplace. And that link would work better with university industry linkages, university immediate communities linkages, and work with the stakeholders who are not necessarily in academia, but they are part of our policymakers. And there was a charity the other day as I close with one of the MPs whom I'll not mention, but he was giving this outside the country to someone who is related to me, actually a family member. And so this family member literally told me, Dad, so and so is asking questions. Why don't the professors in the universities and their students and all that link with us? Because we have a lot of money for this, we have a lot of money for this there, but they don't come with a problem area. They just graduate students theoretically. They get their things on paper, which is part of the 844. And it's the high time that we, the universities also, and the researchers in various fields, begin working, plus policymakers and the leaders, begin working with the other leaders, which is also part of the interdisciplinary kind of living and the approach to problem solving, so that we can be more CBC, and we can, so to speak, if I may coin it that way. And I believe we are getting there, so I'm quite optimistic, and I believe that we shall also get more from other people who are thinking in this area to add to my presentation. Thank you all. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Daktari. As we wind down, we invite all of you to, if you have any presentation you'd like to make, feel free to reach out to us so that we keep learning. And even the focus of today's session is really within what the Journal Club promotes. We are almost 900 students, researchers, lecturers from over 15 universities. You can imagine if we decided to combine efforts, maybe work together on a research area. I have worked on a multidisciplinary paper last year with 2 Journal Club members. I was bringing a gender lens, one was bringing economics, one was bringing governance, and it was really nice working together for publication. So there's a lot of opportunity for multidisciplinary collaboration, even within our own clubs, within our universities, and all that. So thank you very much. I wish you well, and reach out if you have any issue with your research. You know, the second and third Saturday of every month, we usually have a 30 minutes call in for people who want to talk about their research, and it's really been helpful. And if you want to present your research for any feedback, also, we do the mock defense, and you can always book that session for people to listen into your paper and give you some feedback. Otherwise, God bless you. Have a lovely Saturday and keep it up.
Have a lovely one too. God bless you too.
Kwaheri.